What we're looking for, I think, is going to be a landform kind of like that. An outcropping that then has been carved into a village of caves. This must be a military operation because you can hear gunfire off in the distance. Unless it's a Buddhist temple. Okay, that town in the upper left-hand corner is where I'm going. Notice the symbol on the left. Looks like a cross on top of a box. And notice that that's in that icon below the directional lines. I suggest that those directional lines probably, if we spent some time analyzing, reference all of these places, although not quite, because they're different. You will not believe this, and I will explore it when I get back from the other place. Twilight Zone. Sadly, as I get closer and closer, the evidence of tours gets more and more prevalent. I just had a typical tourist faux pas type of problem. I came into the what seemed like entry section, couldn't find the ticket booth. Some guy immediately rushed up to me and started yelling, and didn't happen to notice because he was yelling so loud and so demonstratively. He had something in his hands, were like books. And I just kind of blew him off. Because the more I blew him off, the louder he got. Anyway, he finally left me alone. I kept walking away. And then finally, to enter without a ticket, they said, no, you got to go back. And here comes this guy. He's got the books in his hand. He is the ticket guy. But I was so kind of like intimidated by his tout-like yelling behavior that I was blowing him off as a tout. This is a very beautiful carriage. I had never seen one so far, even in the Emperor's Forbidden City, that was this beautifully carved. These look like the cement or version of the ceramic drums. Okay, as I indicated, we'd be looking for some kind of a landform like this, and presumably up this trail we'll find. Okay, the sign says to the top, so we'll keep going to the top. The upper houses were used for humans living, and the lower caves were used for storage and livestock. There are some caves like this. These were hollowed out by troops during the Second World War, I think, for the purpose of housing troops and storing supplies. Yeah, I'm going to condense information on the introduction to the Guyaju ancient cliff house. There are 8 similar heritage sites like this at the foot of the Hai Tuo Mountains, although Guyaju is the biggest, top-graded, best conserved, with caves most concentrated, and 147 caves, divided naturally into 3 areas, the front, the middle, and the rear, standing layers upon layers in a picturesque disorder. Now it says hidden in a canyon, implying it's defensive. I don't know if that was initially the intent, but it runs from east to west, which means it has excellent cover from the winds and turns of the canyon. It says it's difficult to climb to the peak from the east and difficult to reach the bed of the canyon from the west. The village is easily defended and difficult to attack. All rooms are protected by from the western winds. Plus there are streams and springs in the valley below. And apparently most of the caverns are linked to each other by circular openings. The middle area was a place, Chieftains, it's a large area, used to exercise command, discuss official businesses, hold meetings, venue for all of the villagers to hold memorial ceremonies, etc., with great views. In the rear is the living area with stables and sheepfolds in the lowest area, and stone rooms with heated beds dominating the second layer. Included in the living area doors, windows, kitchen ranges, hot water jars, flues, lampstands, hanging shelves, and storerooms. Some rooms were even equipped with sewers and double-layered doors and locks. At the back of this area is a man-made moat less than 50 meters wide and about 100 meters long, fully concealed. It is the only path leading to the depth of the mountains at the far back, giving it tremendous defensive capability. And the rooms are apparently divided in such a way that they can be further divided into 2-layer rooms, 3-layer rooms, or even 5 or 6-layer rooms. The smallest is less than 5 square meters, while the biggest is big as 29 square meters. 7.45 meters wide, 3.8 meters deep. Basically, nobody knows who carved them or why. Some recent scholars suggest that it's just a group of beacon towers of the Great Wall of the Han Dynasty, just like the ancient cliff houses discovered elsewhere. And turning around, here's our first view up through this very defensible chasm. And probably this is illustrative of the fact that there was water running down through here. Here a basin for collecting water, probably not something that existed. This is a antique well. I had a chance stopping here for a moment to chat with a man who, obviously well educated, speaks excellent English, and is a photographer also, as a hobby, I'm sure. This well is kind of interesting because it reveals a dike, a very large dike there, fairly large, and then a couple of smaller ones there that may or may not be dikes, but I guess they are. They could be sedimentary depositional thin layers of very hard material. Don't know. There are various niches here that probably at some point were for the purpose of icon. On the other hand, and associated with that, probably if it's old, this is the second gate to Mountain Village, site where the second gate to the village used to stand. Mountain Spring used to gush at the inner side of the gate. It's now drained up. Obviously designed to guard against invasion and protect the mountain spring. Window or air holes or both. This is interesting because there are various holes which probably are reached by a route inside the rock from over there somewhere. Very pretty, well-spoken English and of course Chinese, but beautifully dressed. I am confident she is one of the top echelon. This again being one of the defiles that would be defensive and may well be part of a mechanism for escape. It's alluded to, not to particularly this one. Don't see very many animals. Notice all the little holes there, which I'm sure serve some function like air holes, light, maybe even defense. And this site has been purposely well restored and preserved, although I don't see much evidence of restoration except for obviously the tourist facilities for moving around here. But this gives you an idea of the environs. So this is the iconic picture of Domain Kun. And I'm very glad I came here because it's so unique. I'll go back down and explore that further, I'm sure. But and you can see the stairway climbs up to the top. But also as I pan past my 4 or 5 women, you'll see another total section over there that we're going to go visit. Okay, I've come back to the iconic area again because I want to explore it in detail. On the inside if I can and up above. Notice that here there's an indentation that slopes right down into the hole. The hole itself is recessed, and then there's an icon above it, which probably combines the symbol and that practical use. And notice the flat hole of that design. And then here, right next to it, is a series of slightly offset horizontally, depressions. What was that for? Was there a gate here of some sort, or what? Now we enter into this area. Okay, we can't see much in here. I'm going to go inside this area here. Same kind of device here. These holes at the top, probably for some kind of a informal doorway. And that probably was a wall that's disintegrated and been broken down. But notice the back of these all have those troughs, for lack of a better term. This is a bigger room. Looks like a pipe or something there. I don't know if it's a pipe or just a staff of wood. And then here another room. And there's some wood in there, perhaps simulating something, I don't know. Okay, this is a much larger room. It's interesting. Here's a little niche, probably a shelf. You can hear the echo. There, a large niche. Other niches all over the place, just like you do at homes, remodeling things. But what's interesting here is these channels. And notice it comes in over there, goes like this, and these two radiate down here. Could this have been a device for capturing water to bring it inside this room? Looking at the holes, there's no special routing where water would have come down, so that's not it. Here again, another room with a similar situation there. Sloping down from that portal there, a trough in the wall itself, and then coming down here, and then these two. Presumably this has been broken out at some time in the past. Now we'll go over to the next section, which ranges from down below on up high. And she recognized my accent, so she's familiar, quite familiar, versed, I would say, with the accents of several English-speaking peoples. Probably we won't get access to some of those rooms up there, except by the camera. So we'll try to get up there with the camera. That might have been a two-tiered room. I think it's this middle area, perhaps there, that they were referring to has the large rooms. Large. These are particularly pretty right now with the flowers over there. Palace of the Chieftain of the Shi tribe. Now notice, here's where you obviously get access here. The stone's pretty soft, so you could carve out stairs easily enough. Out these places up here. Here you can see the faint remnant of steps. 1, 2, 3. But you gotta be pretty agile. If you're not an Anasazi, you might have some real population attrition. Now notice these rooms that actually had, these areas that had decks, if you will. Notice the stairway, internal stairway, nicely carved. This was probably pretty darn nice to see people living in. So this is the palace of the Shi chieftain. And curiously, it looks very modern, particularly that window section there. It just looks like glass windows go in there very quickly. And you see from the holes at the top, just like the Anastasi, they would have probably embedded poles that came out like this to create either awnings or roofs for that portion there, creating separate rooms. And those grooves there might well serve for wood panels or panels of some sort that created vertical exterior walls. Same thing with the one next to it. Of course, over time, maybe portions have fallen out of up in there, and the rooms were closer to us and would make more sense. And looking inside that room, you can see the trough again. And I asked Jeff if he had any idea what it was for, and he didn't. If this were a lower area, you might assume it was for cattle feed or something, but who would go to that much effort for cattle? You just throw it on the ground. It's interesting if the camera can make it out, and I'm not sure if it can with the shadows and lights, but there appear to be two different levels articulated by two colors, which would normally, in a river rock, would think that that was the level of the river, but I don't know what would account for that. And you would think that there would be some adorning of walls with maybe a plaster and then some painting. Certainly wall coverings like animal skins would be logical. There's one of those holes that goes up at an angle through the wall. For what purpose? Drainage, in case water gets in there? And who knows what these are. They've attempted to protect them, but who knows what they once were. These wood-like railings are excellent. They look like wood. They have, you know, the features of wood and colorations, if you will, grain. And when I hit them, I can't tell whether they're cement or metal. I'm guessing they may be a unique combination of both. A metal core and then some kind of clever surfacing. You can imagine of this place when it was alive with people. The noises and the instruments of life, probably including baskets and so forth. And maybe water when it rained tumbled down, accounting for these white spots here. Maybe not. Maybe that's restoration. But doesn't this seem like a natural water channel here? And wouldn't you think over time they would have channeled that water into a basin of some sort? Here we're looking down on that deck area. And you can well imagine it extended out further, and all of that may have broken off and has been cleared out as rubble by the restoration. And these various ledges you see here, were they the walkways from one place to another? And how did the elderly fare? Imagine the lives that were lived out in that room, walking on that ledge. And again, this defile here certainly was a channel for water. You would think down at the bottom they would have had a check dam. It's just too intuitive to assume they didn't. Look at how square those corners look down there. Here an obvious thoroughfare. Probably worn down over the centuries from use. Long wall and a long trough. Go figure. This room's wall has been lost to antiquity, but it gives us a nice, well-lit view of an interior room. What I'm about to scramble in now is a cave of 3 rooms. A typical cave of 3 rooms. In the middle room there's a stone niche for offering sacrifices to ancestors. There are stone kang and a stone kitchen range in the so I'm standing in the middle of the 3 rooms, and as the gentleman's wife indicates, this was probably the entrance, and where we came in this left-hand room was probably a bedroom of some sort, and now it's been converted for the benefit of tourists to get in there. But there's that strange carved device that comes from a window, slopes in and winds back and forth and then down. Who knows what that was for? Not hard to imagine this filled with various shelves and so forth like this. Holes in the back could very well have held posts that then came out a ways, could have held a bed for that matter. But a double set of shelves makes sense just looking at it. I think this may be what an oven was here. Or maybe that. And there's also a thing called a kang, but is that what this could be? Could those little square portals be for headrest, or was it just part of shelving, etc., for a stove. I don't know which is which, so can't tell. And now we're in the third bedroom. Apparently, well, again, that same strange feature there. Doesn't look like it'd be a bed, because it would be for very thin people, unless they sleep on their sides. But even still, that doesn't look like it would fit a human body, and certainly wouldn't be designed for it. There's a considerable amount of air coming through, so this would have been a very pleasant room. And since it's a three-bedroom or three-room residence, it would probably have been a person who was pretty well heeled. You have to wonder, what was that curve niche for? Being in a place like this, asking these kind of questions is the same thing you do when you're in an old residence out in the American desert and you find some miner's old rock house and you try to figure out, why did he put this piece here and this chunk of metal there and blah, blah, blah.